Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin. Welcome to Thriller Bitcoin.
I've noticed that I'm trying to be right, to ride the largest wave. Still every wave must break, and I'm lost in endless waters. I'm left to float with what I am.
So gift cards.
Gift cards.
Tell me about your journey into the space, Maciej. Is it Maciej? Maciej?
Yeah, Maciej.
Maciej.
Yes. So in Polish, there's always the official name and the official nickname.
Uh-huh.
So Maciej is for friends and family. So yeah.
I love it. What's your journey like? Because I know you used to work at Bull Bitcoin and some other things like that, but let's start there. What was it like working with that group over there?
Yeah, well, perhaps I can start from the start. I've been in the Bitcoin space. Actually, the first time I invested was in 2015. I was pretty young at the time. I was only like 18 years old, still in university. And so I only did it to like get rich quick. And it took me approximately like 2 years before I started going to the local meetup in Montreal, because I'm originally from Montreal. And for those who don't know, the Bitcoin meetup in Montreal is pretty legendary. It was one of the first one in the world. So it has a really mature and really developed community. And I was just a youngster learning, and I met Francis Pouliot there, and I was there with my partners, Gustavo, Flores, Chase, and Tristan. So as we started attending meetups, meeting entrepreneurs, we started developing a desire to also create our own company in the space. So we created a mining company called MiningX. At that time, it was like still like the El Dorado of mining in Quebec, but they started. There was a law there was not a law, but a moratorium that passed. The government was really scared of miners, so that kind of destroyed our dreams and hopes about creating a mining empire. Because basically, even though we were ready to mine and we already had like over 100 S9s. Ready to mine. The government didn't want to provide us with an electricity counter, so we couldn't use the electricity we were already plugged in. So that was one failed company, but we learned a lot. Then we created an exchange called Verify, and that's how we started working with Bull Bitcoin conjointly, and eventually got hired by them to work together. So. It's a long story spanning over a few years, but I tried to summarize it as best as I could.
Yeah. And did you learn a lot from working inside of Bull Bitcoin? And I know we have a lot of mutual friends from Canada, so it's kind of cool to see how all the Canadians kind of rally together. Because I've heard stories from that era, and it sounded amazing, magical. Do you guys still keep in touch?
Yes, we keep in touch. It didn't work out at the end, but we're not on bad terms. It was just different visions. But I mean, we did work together, and I learned a lot. Basically, Bull Bitcoin is the biggest Bitcoin-only exchange in Canada. So following like the Bitcoin ethos and trying to really push the Bitcoin standards. So the clients of Bull Bitcoin are really interested in the philosophy of Bitcoin, and a lot of them are really, just by the fact that it's non-custodial by default, it attracts different kind of users. Or if it's new users into Bitcoin, they quickly need to learn how to use Bitcoin the right way, which is by holding your own keys. And obviously, for bigger clients that invest a sum of money that is considerable, they won't just send it to like a blue wallet or something. They want to learn a little bit more deeply how to conserve it, how to do inheritance planning. So Bull Bitcoin has this aspect of also advising the client post-purchase how to use their Bitcoin and making sure they won't fall into the wrong hands, but also not making mistakes that could lead to a loss, right? So depending on the situation, if it's just using a passphrase or multisig or, the whole kit of advising a client, depending on how comfortable they feel, that's what we were doing.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I come to realize there's a lot of self-sovereign Canadian Bitcoiners that hold it as like this is the bar. So where do you think that comes from? Do you think that comes from just Canadian? I don't know. Yeah, where does that come from? Like, is it just because of the education that's out there about that?
It's hard to say. I think it's a mix of history, who was there at the right time, and like also like there was the first like one of the first BitDev conference happened in Montreal in 2015. So all the legends of Adam Back and like some Blockstream guys and people starting early when there was the block scaling war, like the first discussion happened in Montreal, and Blockstream was also founded in Montreal. So I guess it's a mix of circumstances and but also the fact that some Canadian, not all of course, like a strong minority of Canadians are also strong believers in liberty and can be like libertarians or have this philosophy of independence from the state, and also being a rich and well-educated country. I think was a bit of a mix of all of that led Canada to having a really strong Bitcoin community, right? The work of Francis Pouliot and many others. Also, he was a big proponent of Bitcoin since the beginning. He participated actively into the scaling wars. So that put Canada on the map, I guess. And also the mining industry, right? So there's a lot of potential for mining. So I guess it's a mix of all those factors together.
Yeah, I think the impact that Francis and y'all guys from Bull Bitcoin, and I think that's just that kind of has shown. I mean, here at Plub Lab of like how to do it. Like it's no secret. Like Francis was one of the first. All of y'all were one of the first people that came through Plub Lab and like encouraged us and told us to things to avoid and and introed us to a lot of people in the space. So like. There's no question the amount of impact that Bull Bitcoin and the team at you guys have had on everybody in the space.
That's for sure. I mean, the Bitcoin Montreal meetup is kind of really cool too, because it's a mix of entrepreneurs, beginners, and people that just have been coming to the meetup since forever. And during the COVID thing, it was like basically illegal to organize anything inside. So the only way we could organize something was outside, and in the winter is basically impossible. So after like a year where we didn't organize anything, we like launched a barbecue, just a local park in Montreal, and there was like 200 people that came without any like real advertising, right? Just posting the meetup on meetup.com. So that's a really cool thing from Montreal. It's like as soon as you want to launch something, there's going to be a lot of people coming and like real Bitcoiners, right? And it's funny you say that we have been as an inspiration. I don't take credit for that in Austin, but we also have been an inspiration, I think, for the French community in France. So there's a lot of French people that go to Montreal to live a few years or to study. And from the meetup, there's actually like three pretty considerable big exchanges that are Bitcoin only that spawn from the ideals of Bitcoin Montreal. Obviously, it's not only because of us, but I think we're good at planting the first seed for many people. So yeah, that's something we're proud about. Obviously, it takes a lot of more work than this, but it's just to say we have been an inspiration for the Bitcoin Montreal meetup community as a whole has been an inspiration for many, I think.
Yeah, it's there's something about that seed planting that goes on in these meetups around the world, and the amount of influence, a group of individuals can have like on a particular project or something. It's I feel like it's not well known, I guess, like how many different, like if you know how they always have that like PayPal mafia like infograph, and it shows like all the people that came from that. And then like they always do that with like Apple, and they have like the Xerox thing, or I forget the name of that company that was trying to make like a phone back in the late 80s, early 90s. And like, it was all the people that come from there. There's something to be said about that, about a community of people that gather together to support each other. It's a beautiful thing. I've come to realize it's very critical to the infrastructure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm a Canadian refugee right now. So I didn't escape Canada, but you know what has been happening over the past 2-3 years. Things have been going south, and there's a big movement of people that have been moving to Latin American countries, to Mexico in particular, but also a lot of other countries. A smaller niche have been like going to El Salvador, but I choose Mexico for many reasons. One being the culture that I mostly identify closely with, way more than the Canadian culture and the Quebecois culture, the French Canadian part of Canada. The cost of living is also a big factor. The weather, but just also the sense of adventure. So I've been living in Mexico, and now I'm established in Querétaro, which is like a 2 million inhabitant city, 3 hours north of Mexico. It's one of the fastest growing city in Mexico. It's like really developed and safe. So a lot of it attracts a lot of investment from international companies, especially in the sector of manufacturing and like high level manufacturing. So I see a lot of potential here, and that's why I've been living in Mexico, and I'm kind of want to open the eyes and of other people that have been complaining about their lives in Canada or in the US. Like, just move. Like, I know it's not easy, and I had it more easy because I don't have a family. I'm not married, so obviously it's just about me getting a ticket and going there, right? And if you have a remote job, which can be a little bit easier to find in the Bitcoin world, it's just buy a ticket and go. Go see for yourself. You don't have to stay. You can come back. You can test it out. So I've been a proponent of that kind of philosophy. Like, if you don't like where you're how you're treated in your home country, just move. I know it's not that easy, but it kind of is, right? So yeah, I'm in Mexico right now.
Nice. Yeah, I've been hearing great things about Mexico. We got a few friends over there. What do you think about Canada? Do you think it can spring back? Do you think it could, or do you think Trudeau and do you think he's just too powerful? Is that the right word to make any significant change for Bitcoiners?
I think, there's many aspects to that question, right? Like, do we believe as Bitcoiners that there's going to be like a big world change that's gonna spawn us to the golden era of Bitcoin. I mean, the Bitcoin era, and can take a lot of time, I think. And some people are gonna say like, "Oh, you escape, you don't fight for your country." But I'm from a like immigrant background. I'm Polish, so I don't identify like patriotically with Canada, and the last 2-3 years haven't given me any reason to do so. So I don't know if it's gonna bounce back. I don't think. There's a lot of hope for Pierre Poilievre something, but he also has been leaning in some opinions that I don't agree with. So in general, I just don't trust politicians as a whole to improve my life. So I'm not gonna count on politicians to like reverse the thing. And also, the numbers speaks for themselves. Like Canadians have been more indebted more than ever. People don't have like this work culture anymore. Like we just expect everything to be given to us for free. So the whole mentality, not everybody, obviously, like there's always a minority of people that want to work and don't want to get a free lunch. But as a whole, I think Canada is not going in the right direction, and I think it needs to like kind of crash before it rebounds. I don't know if it's possible to stop the crash, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Do you think? Do you think like the whole? I guess what was it last year? We had the truckers and stuff like that. Do you think there's still that? Do you think that kind of movement that happened? Do you think that kind of? I don't want to say squashed any hope, but it definitely felt like the totalitarian kind of group of people like really came down hard on any kind of grassroots movement from starting again. I mean, definitely feels like they kind of quieted a lot of people and a lot of different kind of tactics. I mean,
yeah, I think it also showed that Bitcoiners aren't ready for real life events such as these. Like, first of all, it's completely I can completely understand why it happened, because, Bitcoiners have been idealizing a world where, liberty and free trade and just individualism is king, right? And we're going to reach that point without violence and without persecution. But history has shown that whenever there is a change, monetary change of like the base monetary of the society, it's always led to revolutions, to wars, to political prisoners. And I guess Bitcoiners have this vision of that everything is going to transition peacefully without any problems. And I mean, it's not that bad. Nobody got killed at the protest. There was nothing. There was no violence as in the traditional sense with guns and like people getting like massacred. But there was like financial violence where some people were their bank accounts were being removed. So I think it showed an example that we're not. How do you say, like, we're not protected just because we have Bitcoin from violence from the state or from higher powers, right? And on the other side, like, so that's a good thing we have been shown this, because it makes us realize that perhaps we need to be a little bit more prepared. And the other side is that technically, how the whole donation thing was done was really bad, right? Because first of all, the first address was static, so there was no privacy because basically the way it was set up, there was only one single address. Everybody was sending to the single address, except if they were sending their donations with the Lightning Network, which only a minority of people did. And then the public figures that were holding the keys were public, right? And that's also kind of a issue as well, because you need to trust the holders of the keys that accept Bitcoin for certain situations, such as this one, because you're not just going to send the Bitcoins without knowing if they're going to get distributed, right? And that put a target on the person holding the keys. I know, like a session, I think Greg Foss and another person I forgot. And that's also another point of failure of that whole thing, right? Because then the police can just go to their door, knock on the door, and be like, "Okay, give out your keys," and then the whole Bitcoin dream is lost again, right? Because we're still vulnerable to like the higher powers, right? So I don't know if it crushed the dream, or it actually showed that there's so much more that we need to do if we want to reach that dream one day, right? I don't know if that answers the question.
It kind of feels like at that time, and I'm feeling more and more these days that, you know, a lot of this stuff is going to lead to like centralization, whether we like it or not. And I don't know. I mean, I don't want to put out that bearish sentiment, but it's definitely feeling more and more like that's going to be a thing. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Canada for me, except for visiting and just friends and family, it's kind of like I don't think about it anymore too much. I appreciate the one that stayed on the ground fighting for themselves for freedom. But as things are going, like I think Canada is also wants to implement taxation based on citizenship. So if you're a citizen of Canada, even if you don't live in Canada, they want to tax you like the US are doing. So I mean, like we are really like one of the highest tax countries, and the media, the whole thing, the only thing they do is like make you feel bad, right? Mm-hmm. About how you're a consumer, how just your life, you know. So you know. I don't know. I don't have big hopes for Canada. I'm bullish for Mexico and Latin America.
Do you think that's how it'll kind of play out? Where we'll have just like these orange countries, and then there will just be these like fiat countries. And do you think that's how it's going to play out? It kind of seems like it's already kind of looking in that direction. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, you've traveled more.
I don't know. I mean, even El Salvador, like, yes, it's a foreign country, but to what extent, except like the marketing? I mean, yes, you can go to like Bukele is talking about it and everything, but how really true it is an orange country? Right now, it's still using the US dollar. It's still highly interconnected with all the Mondial organization. So, you know, is it just a marketing ploy, or is it really going to switch to a Bitcoin only standard? I don't know, right? And still, you know, they get investment from China, they get investment from the US. So they're still heavily dependent of those bigger powers. So I don't know if we're going to reach that kind of balkanization where you said we're going to have fiat countries and orange countries. I don't know. I'm not. I don't want to speculate on that.
Yeah.
I think there's always going to be orange people. I mean, and I think that's the most important, right?
Yeah, there's orange people that make up the majority of the country.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's switch gears to Mexico. So the Nifty and Stack launched the Bitcoin Plus in Mexico City last December. Did you go to that? How was that privacy event?
Yeah, I went there. It was really cool to not finally, but to see like a really high quality event being organized in Mexico. And I think, I mean, a lot of Americans have been traveling to Mexico for years, but for those who don't, who never did, you know, landing in Mexico City, which is like a city of 22 million people, absolutely huge monster of a city, really developed. I mean, obviously, the conference was organized in one of the best neighborhoods that are being gentrified, as some people would say. But it shows like the potential of the city, right? And everybody talks about New York, everybody talks about Los Angeles, but not everybody talks about Mexico City, which is like the center of this big country. So I like the fact that it happened here, and it showed me that there's going to be, I think, not a rush, but a beginning of like bigger scale events, or at least some sort of organization in Mexico as a whole. And I intend to be part of it with my partners, Gustavo and Tristan, because there's a lot of communities scattered a little bit everywhere in Mexico. So in Guadalajara, which is like the second biggest city, Monterrey, up in the north, Querétaro, we're trying to build something. It's a bit smaller, but I think the Bitcoiners that are here are a little bit hidden. So we just need to show them there's a community. So for Mexico, it showed that we have a big potential. And then the conference itself was really dev focused. So I always appreciate listening to them, even though I don't understand everything, but it shows me that there's always some people builders working nonstop whenever it's a bull or bear market on the Bitcoin protocol, on different Bitcoin implementations, wallets to make Bitcoin more private. So yeah, it was a bullish event, I would say.
Yeah, it's I heard great things. We had a couple people from the lab that went over there, and it seems like you're right. It seems like there's like some Bitcoiners brewing. Have you started a meetup yet? I think, or is it in Mexico? Do they have a Mexico City meetup or club?
Yeah. There's few. I mean, there's like, obviously, if you look on Facebook or Telegram, there's always tons of group for everything, right? But some of them just started in the past and stopped because they were not consistent or whatever. So it's hard to find those that are really active and meaningful. So I know there's, I've been to the Bitcoin Embassy bar, in Mexico City. There's actually one bar that accepts Bitcoin, and there are regularly meetups being organized there. It's also like there's some altcoin talks too, but primarily Bitcoin. And there's one in Guadalajara, focused more on the Lightning Network. They're all over the place, also in places where there's a lot of expats, right? Like Puerto Vallarta on the coast, or Cancun, there's some communities. But as I said, they're a little bit scattered, right? And we want to kind of like reunite them. That's why I try to attend as much as meetups as possible. And the one in Querétaro, in our city, we started in January, and we intend to reproduce the model we did in Montreal. So like doing it regularly, like if you want to create a community, first of all, like consistency is key. So one a month at least. And the model is not just to gather people to drink beers, but also, for example, to have short presentations about a technical project within Bitcoin, or like explaining some details about the evolution of Lightning Network or whatever, just something that is showing people that Bitcoin is going forward in terms of like technically. And also, you can talk about the history of money, like whatever is related to Bitcoin, so have different kind of subjects and bring the experts, because there's always Bitcoiners around, like random developers that have been living in Querétaro, and then they're like, hey, I live in Querétaro, and you're like, hey, you come over to the meetup, right? So first you create this community of experts, of entrepreneurs that have been working in the space. And then once you have this like solid community that are not scammers, that know what they're talking about, that's when you try to attract more the beginners, right? So when the beginners come, they see this is something serious. Like it's not just like Bitcoin for investment, and you can just you just buy it and you hold it, right? No, you can work in the space. You can perhaps you may find a job at the meetup, because some people are looking for this or this. So the goal is to have like a set of tools within the meetup a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think Mexico is kind of Mexico City and the surrounding areas? Do you think it's primed for a faster adoption than in some other places, in some other countries, because of I mean, the peso is like worth very little, right, in exchange to the dollar. Do you think there's Mexicans out there that are a little bit more open to using and transacting on Bitcoin and Lightning?
To be honest, I don't think the Bitcoin adoption will come within Mexican nationals first. I believe it's more actually the expats and digital nomads that can bring like the beginning of an adoption of Bitcoin within Mexico, because we're the type like me, right? I'm earning Bitcoin for a living, so I need to spend it, right? So and obviously I'm lucky of having a job online that pays relatively well, super well, relatively to the Mexican national that works, just a regular job. So, I have way more Bitcoin to spend and money to invest in than the average Mexican national. And also, I think the mentality of Mexicans in general, like for lower middle class, when they think about investing, they primarily focus on real estate and land. That's like their traditional way of thinking. It's not like in the US or Europe and Australia, whatever, where kind of everybody will invest in stocks or invest in Bitcoin or other digital stuff. Here, still, people are having this mentality, or you can touch the land, you can make it work for you, right? So, and obviously, they don't have that much money to invest, right? Well, there's also like rich Mexicans, obviously, that invest in stocks and invest in Bitcoin, but I don't think they're that big of a percentage. I think the last like survey that came out is like 3% of Mexicans own Bitcoin, which is, or maybe a little bit less, like 2% or something. So it's like 1 to 2 million people that own Bitcoin. You can trust that data or not. So yeah, I don't think. One thing else I want to touch on is, like, for example, in El Salvador, a lot of the country is still unbanked and don't have like good access to banks and having an account and everything. But here in Mexico, that's not the case. Here, everyone, not everyone, but pretty much everyone has a bank account. It's not something that's not accessible. It's way more developed than other Latin American countries. So it's not the same reality for Mexicans than, for example, a poor El Salvadorian person that lives in the mountain, like in the countryside, and they have to travel, 2 hours to get to an ATM. And once they get there, there's no money left in the ATM. That's not the case in Mexico, right? So because of all these factors, that they're like rich, but not rich enough. They're like kind of the middle. They don't have like the incentives right now to invest in Bitcoin and start using it, in my opinion, right? But then there's a lot to be said, because then Ricardo Salina, which is like the third richest man in Mexico, he also owns a line of bank called Azteco, and he wants to introduce Bitcoin services within Azteco if he didn't already did. So, there's many ways it can be played out.
Do you think remittances is the first product that will get a lot of Mexican nationalists on board with Bitcoin, or do you think that's still up in the air?
That would be possible. I don't have the exact data. I know that there's like close to 50 billions of remittances coming from the US to Mexico alone. So how much of that percentage could be captured by companies wanting to do it with Bitcoin? I don't know. The problem is also, I know Bitso is doing it already, but kind of like in the background. many companies are doing it in the background, like offering the service of transmitting money as a service to companies that are really doing it using Bitcoin, but the user don't see it. So they, for example, will be using Bitcoin, but they don't even know. So but I don't have the data, right? So yeah, it's totally possible. But on the other hand, I know in El Salvador, something came out recently, and it was like only 3% of the remittances were using Bitcoin directly. So, if we base ourselves on the example of El Salvador, perhaps not, but obviously the potential is huge. So it depends on how many people work on it, how many people promote it. We need the whole entrepreneurial machine and marketing machine to work on it, right?
Is there, how many exchanges are out of Mexico? Is it just Bitso and is Swan out of, I feel like, isn't it the Swan or Strike or some of these other companies, Bull Bitcoin? Do they have, can you buy Bitcoin from them in Mexico? I don't know if I've.
I don't think from Swan you can. I'm not sure, but
is it just that one company? Is it just that one?
No. There's many exchanges. I know. Well, all like the more international exchanges like Binance.
Oh, okay.
Are there obviously, but there's like some. The thing is it's really hard to do an exchange in Mexico. Like you need to get like a fintech license, so it's like kind of unofficial that you're creating an exchange, and that fintech license takes a lot of time, few months, and like a heavy investment to get it, and it's not guaranteed you're gonna get it. And then again, once you have it, because the law hasn't been defined clearly in terms of Bitcoin and digital stuff in general, people will only have like will have their headquarters outside of Mexico, and they will only have like a subsidiary in Mexico. So even Bitso is not based in Mexico; they're based elsewhere, and they only have like a subsidiary working there, right, employing the services of their outside company. So I think the fact that it's a bit hard to create a company that's like native from here makes it also makes it a break for the adoption in general.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a journey to say the least, but it's going to take, like you said, a little bit of everybody pushing in that direction. But yeah, man, Mexico sounds really, really good though. We went there in like the summer, and man, I had a great time. Fabulous time. We went to Mexico City. It was amazing. Nice. We went ATV riding like by the pyramids and stuff. Nice. And it was so inexpensive. Like compared to like some of the stuff you can just do here in Austin, it was just like really inexpensive. And we met a few Bitcoiners and stuff, and checked out that bar that you mentioned. And it's kind of cool. Like the Roma Norte neighborhood was very hip and trendy, and there's a lot of young people there. It kind of reminded me of just like an Austin neighborhood, like on the east side or something. It was cool.
Yeah, I love Mexico City. I go like almost every month because there's always somebody coming. Actually, my mother came for the first time to visit me last Friday. So we have visited Mexico City during the weekend, and I've been to the pyramids the first time. And yeah, I was kind of bummed you cannot climb on the pyramids, like that kind of sucks. But it's kind of impressive to see like the ancient cultures mixed within the European one, and from that emerged the Mexican culture as a general, right? So it's like a really cultural countries, and there's infinite things to do, like absolutely infinite things to visit. So yeah, and as you said, it's cheap, especially compared to American standards. It's really cheap, but you still get the same quality of amenities and services and food and whatever you need, right? So that's the great part of it.
Yeah, and I feel like for me personally, like my father's from Mexico, like he was born and raised there, and for me, it was like a lot of things that I saw there. I was like, oh, this is where this is like some of the things that you grow up knowing, and you think it's like unique to you, and then you go somewhere else, you're like, no, there's a reason why you have these attractions towards things. It was fascinating, like from a personal perspective, learning more about myself and the culture. And yeah, it's kind of cool, man. There's some really hard workers over there in Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, really hard workers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think also that's why I'm bullish on Florida and Texas in general, is that there's so many Latinos there too. And like I was in Miami and like random people were speaking Spanish to me, So I was like, okay, this is really cool. And perhaps we can create like a new sort of alliance between the southern states and like Mexico and the whole Latin America. I think it's the same kind of culture, like similar culture, like same values a little bit. So there's, I think there's something there.
Yeah, definitely for sure. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about Bitrefill. What? So you left Bolt Bitcoin. Tell me about that transition and then moving over to Bitrefill.
Yeah, so I left Bolt Bitcoin, and I was kind of unemployed, and it's not good to use your Bitcoin if you're not earning some. So obviously I needed to find a job, and I was in during the summer of 2022. No, wait, yeah, exactly. So just a few months ago, I was in Montreal, and we organized a meetup. And Justin, my friend from Bitrefill, who has been working as a dev for years with them, told me like, well, we're looking for a Mexican and a Canadian ambassador for Bitrefill. Well, that's like, that's exactly my lifestyle. So the match was like impossible to reproduce almost, because I was already transitioning into living in Mexico. I was working the Bitcoin space in Canada for a long time. So like the role was perfect for me, and it allowed me for travel for everything. So I feel a bit, in the beginning, I felt like an imposter in the Mexican world, because obviously I'm not Mexican. But as I said before, I believe that the first like movement of adoption of Bitcoin in Mexico will be done by digital nomads and expats that earn money online, earn Bitcoin doing many stuffs online, and they need to spend the Bitcoin somehow. So that's how I got hired for Bitrefill. And from that was only a part-time role, but then I love the company really a lot. It's a really great company, functioning really well with a great work culture, and everybody is like pushing towards the same goal. So it's really nice. So I started, being implicated more and more. So now I'm also implicated in social media and just like marketing ideas in general. So I've been loving it, and there's some open roles. I mean, it's kind of a dream for a Bitcoiner to work for Bitrefill, I feel, because you're getting paid in Bitcoin if you want, and then you're also working actively on making Bitcoin adoption a reality, right? So Sergey, the CEO, is always talking about circular economies. Spending your Bitcoin, not just holding it. I think it's a crucial part of making Bitcoin a reality. So yeah, I love it so far.
That's good. That's good to hear. I think for me, Bitrefill first came on the map from John, like Carvalho, right? Like I remember seeing his tweets, and then I'm thinking, like, who is this guy? Then you go and you look, he's like, oh, he works at Bitrefill. Oh, okay, what's that? And then you start. At least for me, like I started using it in 2017 just for like a lot of sats that I was earning in Bitcoin and stuff. And when here recently, you guys have really attached yourselves to like the whole Lightning infrastructure and being able to spin up a channel, and there's been many times here in the lab where we do that. So for me, it's just like, it's kind of one of those companies that does gift cards, but it also does a lot of these other kind of services. Can you kind of speak about that, about like what other services y'all have besides just the gift card portion of it?
Yes. Well, there has been during the past few months, there was a big service introduced in the US called Bill Pay, where you could pay for basically all your bills, your credit cards, your utility bills, everything basically with Bitcoin, Lightning, and the other cryptos we have. But unfortunately, because of the whole, I don't know how much of the details I can say, so I will say as least as possible.
Yeah, for sure.
We're working on getting it back on. So because a lot of people are asking for it, so it's not as I said, I don't know how much I can say, but I know we're working hard on getting it back because it was really useful for people and was only active a few months, but the usage has been growing a lot. So, but the service is actually available in El Salvador. So you can use bill pay to pay for your bills in El Salvador. And obviously the goal for Bitrefill in the long term, I think, is to get every country on the map possible on the bill pay services. So just not gift cards, but all things you can pay with Bitcoin. So yeah, that's the biggest service, I would say, apart from gift cards. So yeah.
Yeah. And did you all do that at Bull Bitcoin too? Didn't y'all do that as well too, where you could pay in bills, or did I?
Yeah, that's a feature that not a lot of people know. You can pay for a lot of services with Bull Bitcoin in Canada, your bills directly. It's I don't know if I don't know how much of the volume is part of paying bills, right?
Do you think that'll just become a feature that everybody will have to add one day? How hard is it to kind of create that or to build that into a system?
I mean, I think it's not that hard because I think, it depends on the country because everything depends on the laws and everything depends on, but the actual technical integration of integrating payments is not that hard, right? It's just like a storefront. It's just like a front end where you show what you can pay with Bitcoin, and then in the back end, you do the payments yourself, not the user. You do it with fiat, and then you convert. It's basically like a regular sell. It's like a regular sell of Bitcoin, but instead of sending money to the bank account of the user, you just pay the provider that he selected, right? So technically, it's not that hard. I think it's more of a question of legality. And then again, I'm not an expert of this, so I cannot assert. But I don't think it's. I don't think perhaps it's the focus, right, of most of, I would say, crypto companies, because they want people to keep their money on their platforms and to trade and to like do crazy stuff and not actually live and use their Bitcoin purposefully for paying stuff in real life, right? So perhaps that's the reason why they won't implement it, and that maybe it will just represent a small percentage of their whole revenue, so they don't bother doing it, and they don't want to encourage that lifestyle, right? Of actually spending your Bitcoin on real stuff, right? So,
do you think it's a good idea to spend your Bitcoin? I mean, because you hear that debate all the time, right? You either hodl it, you spend it, or you earn it, or you just dollar cost average in it. Like, what's kind of your philosophy as far as like how you see that just I guess it's just like what we talk about in the space, right? Like, how do you what's your philosophy on that?
Well, I think, sorry. My philosophy is basically, are you a real Bitcoiner if you don't spend your Bitcoin, right? It's because you haven't been really on the bit. I mean, for somebody that earns Bitcoin, obviously you need to spend them, right? Or at least convert them into cash, because not everybody, not all services, and not all products that you want to buy, you can buy with Bitcoins directly. So if you're a real Bitcoiner, you earn in Bitcoin and you spend them, obviously, because you need to live for everything, right? But also, like, how do we expect of creating a Bitcoin economy if the Bitcoin don't circulates, and like the concept of like a circular economy getting integrated into our lives, right? I much rather would have preferred to pay for my groceries at a local store with Bitcoin, and that person, if there's enough services around them, can pay with that Bitcoin for something else than having to convert it back to cash, right? Because the way we like gonna escape the fiat system is by having a economy within ourselves, right? At least, I mean, not every Bitcoiner is a developer or is offering services online. Some of them are just regular people, farmers offering, having a regular job. But so, like, how do we expect creating this new economy without spending it? So, like, this mentality of hodl forever. Like, yes, of course, hodl a bit. Well, not a bit, as much as I can. But if you have the chance of making those Bitcoin circulate within the Bitcoin economy, do it, right? And you can always buy back the sats you spent right away. But you still have contributed of making that a reality, not just like hoarding it under your mattress kind of philosophy. And that's something that Sergey, the CEO of Bitrefill, has been pushing a lot. Like, Bitcoiners tend to think that the Bitcoin users are only the people that have their pleb like kind of mentality online on Twitter. But for example, usage of on Bitrefill shows otherwise, right? A lot of people are using Bitcoin not because they're ideological about it. They don't really know what is Bitcoin. They don't really care what it is. It just serves them a purpose, a practical purpose. So, for example, a lot of people in the gaming industry, a lot of people traveling, such as me, like expats, have been using Bitcoin for a long time, and it's useful for them. And they spend it, right? They're users of Bitcoin without being Bitcoiners. And we need to realize as a community, there's a really big, and much of the adoption will happen this way, through Bitcoin being a tool that's useful and not Bitcoin being an ideology. And obviously you need the ideology, as we do right now, the podcast, everything, to have attract people to build applications, to build tools, to build companies that are useful, that the other people, the users, will use in their everyday life to, and make and just use Bitcoin because it's useful. And another analogy Sergey makes is like, you probably use a car, right? And millions and billions of people use a car, but how much of the users of car are going to car conferences, right? Not a lot.
Yeah.
But both are important. So we just need to realize that, and it's okay. Like plebs and people on Twitter don't need to spend their Bitcoin necessarily, and they can keep to just follow the ideology. But we need to realize as well that in order for a real adoption to happen, we need other users to use it, like in their everyday lives or for a certain purpose.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think you hit it right on the nail. Like there's a lot of plebs out there that are, making and earning sats from like Stacker News, from like Fountain, from their own blogs, from even Geyser to like, I mean, I can name dozens more that are building like some kind of tipping service. You even have Albi that's being spread on through Twitter. Noster's doing its own sort of onboarding for Bitcoiners and Lightning clubs out there, and developers. Developers are even creating faster, more earning products right now, as we're kind of seeing it through the ecosystem. I think we're getting to a point now where there's a lot of sats that are sitting just in like a wallet of a sort. I think Fetty, when that comes out, and the cashew stuff, when that starts circulating too as well, you'll start seeing even more sats just kind of sitting there. And then at a certain point, it gets to like, okay, do I spend these? Do I send these to my cold storage? Like, what do I do there? But I think there's going to be a group of clubs out there that are going to be spending those sats that they're earning, to like, take out a significant other, or to pay a bill, or to open a Lightning channel. Like it's, I think we're reaching that saturation point where sats are sitting on a wallet somewhere, and you could easily convert that to a gift card, like on Bitrefill, right? So I think it's inevitable that we get to a point where we just start, earning in sats and then paying in sats, and then the dollar just kind of gets, I guess, less used by Bitcoiners. I would imagine, maybe not, but I'm kind of seeing that trend already here in Austin.
I don't know what has been happening in Austin, but basically, as you said, yes, there's many Bitcoiners starting to earn sats on the side, but like I want to emphasize, like you shouldn't be forcing yourself to use Bitcoin just to use it, to make it useful, right? Because that's kind of like, the real users of Bitcoin use Bitcoin because they don't have another choice. So I have like just this anecdote where I've been learning Spanish, obviously living in Mexico. I'm not like a gringo that refuses to learn Spanish, and living in another country. So, it's based on just like conversation between the teacher and I. And obviously I'm talking about my job, what I've been doing. And it's funny because the daughter of the teacher told, the teacher had a daughter that was learning Russian, and through a teacher in Russia. And because of the sanctions imposed by all the America, the Europe, it's basically impossible to send money to Russia right now to another particular person. So that person said, the teacher of the daughter that was teaching Russian to the daughter of my teacher in Spanish, told her, well, pay me in Bitcoin. It's the only way I can get paid, right? Because we can basically skip all the sanctions, and you just buy Bitcoin, send it to me, and I'm going to figure out how to spend it in Russia. So the teacher asked me how to buy Bitcoin in Mexico so her daughter could pay her Russian teacher, right? So those are the cases where Bitcoin is so needed, right? And it's just like a natural adoption because it's the only way people can get paid for something, right? And I think that's where you're going to see real adoption. And those kind of cases is just an anecdote, right? But how many millions cases like that are happening all over the world just at the moment right now? People needing to get paid for something, but it's just so unpractical to get paid in fiat. So they start using Bitcoin as a tool, not as an ideology. They might not even care that they might not even know there's only 21 millions. They might not, they don't care. It works. And that's all they need to know,
Dang, that's a beautiful dream, man. That's kind of cool. How can you not get on board with that? That's, it'll probably happen like that, right? Just get more and more of those.
Because, in Austin, a lot of people just have a fiat job getting paid $150,000 a year, getting paid well. So the need for Bitcoin is not that strong, right? Because the visceral need of getting paid, and if you're not getting paid, you starve, right? Or not, maybe not that far.
I don't know, man. We have a lot of Bitcoiners here in this town. I'm sure that are getting paid in Bitcoin of some sort. So a lot of the people that I hang out with, we all send sats to each other. It doesn't. But I agree. I think there's there's definitely more growth, in some of these other places. But yeah, it's kind of one of the things I kind of see. It's just like earn in Bitcoin, spend it, and then you still have, your savings, just how you would do like the dollar, right? You would earn your paycheck or whatever, and then you would save a portion of that into your savings account. I think I look at it the same way. It's just like that same mindset, but I'm probably not the majority.
Maybe come whenever you come to Mexico, feel free to reach out on my Twitter. I'm always around somewhere, so we can have a chat. And obviously, me and my friends, Gustavo as well, we will be really trying to build a community here in Mexico, something interesting and like of high quality. So for anybody that is perhaps thinking to going to Mexico, even live here, don't hesitate to contact us. It will be a pleasure to talk and keep earning and spending and stacking sets.
Nice.
I burned a skull and cross, burned on my arm, tattooed the trace of your fingers through my palm. Without you, I got these scars of you. I heard your brother had a heat stroke, and I heard your sister, she's coming home again. Without you, now all I got is new.